Hello and welcome to our webinar. Um, from leads to loyalty, building a high growth aesthetic practice with marketing and ops in sync. That's a lot to say on a Tuesday evening before Thanksgiving. I am Rachel, marketing manager at My Advice, and I will be moderating this event today. We know a lot of aesthetic practices are great at generating interest or great at delivering care, but the real growth happens when marketing and ops are tightly aligned. So you're not just getting more leads, you're getting loyal, long-term patients and a profitable business. That's why we want to discuss this with our partner aesthetic practice partners, with both of us leaning into our respective area of expertise. Quick housekeeping, we're going to talk for like 30, 40 minutes. Rob and Kara and myself, and then we'll do some final takeaways, and then we're going to hold Q&A at the end. But please continue to drop your questions in the chat at any time, in the Q&A, anywhere that you see fit, and I will monitor that. At the end, too, I'm going to show a slide with QR codes to talk to both Rob and to Kara. I'll send out that information tomorrow if you miss it, so don't stress. And now let's just start with quick introductions and hear about who you're going to be learning from. So, Kara, let's start with you.
Well, first off, thank you so much, Rob and Rachel, for having me. Super excited to join the My Advice team. My name is Kara McClanahan. I am the CEO and executive consultant for Aesthetic Practice Partners. I don't know who is joining us this evening because I can't see everyone, but hello out there. I hope everyone's ready for a super exciting holiday week. We're just super excited to dive into how important ops and marketing tie together. Yeah, super excited to be here.
Awesome. And Kara, thank you so much for joining us as well. Hi, everyone out there in the universe. My name is Robbie Antozzi, Senior Practice Growth Consultant with My Advice. And I've been consulting in this space for 13 years. I work with a ton of aesthetic practices. And really what we focus on is really the marketing piece. And we help out with new patient acquisition. So it's what I've been living. It's what I've been breathing, again, for the past 13 years. And like I said, we're very excited to have Kara here today because I'm going to be the first one to tell you that marketing only goes so far within your practice, quite honestly. It's a lot about taking care of what you already have. It's about making sure that your staff is in sync with you as the business owner. So there's so many things and so many pearls of wisdom that Kara will give you here today as well in terms of just running a very efficient practice. And again, if you're focused on new client, new patient acquisition, that is really where I focus. There's a lot of things that really go into that relative to creating visibility. There's a lot that goes into AI optimization as well. And I think that if you want to virtually raise your hand, there's a little bit of AI fatigue, I would say. Rachel and Kara, I'm sure that you guys can kind of agree with that. But
Mhm.
it's not going anywhere. And we also want to make sure that you're prepared, to show up not only in traditional Google searches, but also AI search as well, because that's really where things are headed. So anyways, personally, I have two kids. I have two golden retrievers, and I love to take care of them outside of doing what I do on the business side.
Perfect.
I
Thank you,
love
guys.
that.
So let's kick it off. Let's get started. If you could each give me in one sentence, or maybe two or three, why does getting your marketing and your ops in sync matter so much right now for aesthetic practices?
Does it have to be one sentence?
No, you can have, I'll give you a few because I like you.
Okay. I would say again, when it comes down to creating visibility and showing up when someone is intently searching for what you do, we have to keep in mind that as human beings, we are conditioned to go to Google as an example when we're in need of something. If my dry cleaner's closed tomorrow, I'm not going to pull out my phone and go to Facebook or Instagram to find what I'm looking for. I'm pulling out my phone and typing in a Google search, dry cleaners near me. So we need to make sure that number one, you are optimized well, your online presence is optimized well to show up. And there's a lot that goes into that relative to what these platforms are looking at. Google reviews is a part of it, content is a part of it. So there's a big strategy that goes beyond that. And you want to make sure that, again, you have the right team and the right focus areas there. But even when that happens, in order to, again, convert patients into your practice effectively, there's a lot that goes into that as well in terms of the vernacular, the tone of voice. When someone calls into your practice, are they saying the right things? Are they answering the right questions the way that you would as a business owner? So that is why, my advice to individuals on this particular webinar tonight, you have to assemble a team of individuals who know what they're doing. It's not enough just to do it by yourself. You have to make sure that you partner with experts that really know marketing inside and out, that know operations inside and out. And that is really, the practices that I've seen grow and really do this the right way. They're the ones who have assembled, that team together. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I love that. I would add the importance of understanding that there's a difference between getting patients to the door and then getting patients in the door and then obviously getting patients to come back. And this is kind of going back to your question is why does marketing and operations need to be aligned? So everything that Robbie said, but then also understanding that it's not just the tone, but that synchronization of your team. How many times, and again, virtual ways of hands here, especially as a consultant, I've worked with thousands of practices over the last 30 years I've been in the industry. And the number one thing I hear from teams is, oh, I didn't even know what was going on with marketing. Oh, that's on our website. And we hear from the marketing side, we're driving leads to the door. Why are you coming back and saying that they're not getting in the door? It's that synchronization. So yes, that conversation, but understanding that the patient journey has to be congruent from driving them to the door, what happens when they come in the door, and all of that communication, all the teams are aligned. And then also, how are you keeping patients in the door? The disconnect in most practices when I walk in the door is marketing and operations because we think we live on islands. Marketing's job is to market, and the inside's job is to patient experience. But the reality is, we all need to be synchronized. And when you are not synchronized, you're losing patients somewhere along the way.
I love that. That makes so much sense. And I think that ties really well into like talking about having a unified marketing stack. So obviously we want all of the, or what I should ask, what are the key systems that really need to be unified, both on the marketing side and even on the ops side, and the automation side, just to make sure that website, local SEO, reviews, paid search, inquiry management, texting, email, like what has to talk to each other to make everything work?
Everything. That's
Yeah,
the answer to that. Literally everything should be in sync and
100%.
talk to each other. Yeah, because look, your online presence is a part of your brand. It's an extension on your business, and when patients are evaluating the many different options that they have when it comes down to aesthetic treatment options, they're looking at every single thing relative to your online presence before they hop into that decision. So your website, as an example, it needs to speak to who you are. It needs to have the right content on it. It needs to answer people's questions. But also, most importantly, it also needs to have the right conversion tools. And when I talk about conversion tools, the question sometimes that I ask is, does your website have live chat on it? What we've actually done recently with a lot of our live chat websites that we're building, it's basically chat. It's powered by artificial intelligence, and it's really unique because it actually scrapes content directly from your website and answers people's questions. So if I come to your aesthetic website and I start to ask the question, what is the difference between Botox and Dysport, as an example? So long as there is content, on your website that explains what the differences are between Botox and Dysport, the AI live chat is going to be able to answer that person's question right there in real time. And I think that's really critical because that is going to speed up, your lead to consult, time frame. When
Mhm.
patients are having their questions answered directly through the website, or even from again you, the business owner, or someone on your staff, they're getting closer to booking that consultation and coming into your practice. So all of these things really need to be speaking to each other. They need to be in sync, and then things just kind of flow from there. If you're really doing a good job of the patient experience, someone is going to be happy enough to want to leave some feedback about their experience and leave a review. So then the question is like, well, what type of system do you have in place to make that process really easy for a patient to leave a review? Oftentimes, I recommend a little bit of handholding when it comes down to actually acquiring a review. In other words, send out a text message to the person. We've built out an entire system that we basically allow our practices to cherry pick really happy patients. Let's get a text message over to them. But the practices that are really winning, as an example, when it comes down to Google review generation, are the ones who are making that process a little bit more personal. They're asking the questions first, like, hey, did you have a good experience? They're not sending a text message the day after someone got Botox because they're still bruising. Like, hey, how did we do? Well, I'm bruising still, so I don't feel myself or look myself right now. So it's all about timing this out appropriately and really just being a human and taking the transactional nature, so to speak, out of generating review. Make it personal as much as what you can. So again, I know that we're just kind of hitting the tip of the iceberg here, talking about websites and reviews, but that's a lot that goes into just making sure that, some things are definitely in sync when it comes down to your online presence and really converting new patients.
Mm.
Yeah, and I would add tech stack to that because I think also part of your question is what all needs to work, think together or speak together. I would add your tech stack needs to speak together. You have to have all the right tools from your, again, beautiful website to your online chat to do you have an effective CRM to manage all of your leads? And does your CRM speak to your practice management system or does it not? What does your follow-up system and cadence look like? I think everyone, one, like half the universe is afraid of AI and the other half has over embraced it. And we need to get everyone to come back to the middle
Yeah.
and really, really understand where it's appropriate to use AI. Robbie, what you're talking about is the absolutely perfect place to use AI and leverage it. It's answering questions 24/7, it's answering leads immediately, it's using factual information from our website that we built rather than just like the universe, because we know that AI doesn't always pull the right information from the universe. But when we're intentional like that, and then we also use like AI automation for follow-ups. But to your point, don't use it for getting reviews because that needs to be a personal conversation. So I think your tech stack also has to speak to each other. And making sure that we're not just layering meaningless tech stack on each other because that becomes expensive. The systems start breaking down and that communication lack actually builds rather than enforces it. But again, language and tech stack is so important.
Yeah, we
And
totally have to.
Kara, oh,
Go ahead,
sorry,
Rachel.
Rob. No, Kara, I was gonna ask. So we talk a lot about reviews, right? Rob touched on it, making sure they're, constant and consistent. We always say though, like those negative reviews, right? They're gonna happen.
Mhm.
But you gotta do like listen to them, right? Like make sure that you're like taking that feedback in and, try and get the client happy. But what have you seen works best? Like how can those negative reviews essentially support what's really happening and the positive reviews
Yeah.
support what's really happening in a practice? Like, yeah.
Well, I think that you hit it on the head. You have to do something with the information. One, it
Yeah.
has to be a learning opportunity. So you're not just addressing it online because you want everyone to see that you addressed it, although that is important too. But you're getting that information. How do we do things better? We've worked with lots of practices that by just coaching them to not just respond online, but actually dig into that. Find out why that patient's experience happened the way it happened. If you're able, how can you correct it? And actually, instead of having patients remove their reviews, we have them amend them. It's okay to be unhappy, but if you can show that they came back and made me happy, they addressed my concern, that actually speaks more volumes than just asking them to review it or not asking people that aren't happy to leave reviews. I think that's one thing. And also, don't be afraid of like the occasional review that's not always a 5 star. We're conditioned to think we always need 5 star reviews. Number one, and Robbie, you can probably speak more to this. If Google only sees 5 star reviews, they start wondering what's going on.
Mhm.
And number two is it is unauthentic. It is unauthentic if we're only cherry picking reviews, but also again, it's that trust and credibility. And I heard actually at a recent conference recently when someone said it was actually a provider had a magical like answer. When someone sees a negative review, remember that cray cray recognizes cray cray, but sane people recognize cray cray too. Like if you have that one really, really awful review that's just going on and on and on, like don't worry about it. Like somebody that's going to see it is going to see what it's worth. And also remember that how you respond and how you address those is more important than what they actually say.
I couldn't agree more.
I
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah, I mean, look, negative reviews are going to happen. You run a business and you can't please every single person. That's a fact of life. And we're all in business and we've all come across, some great people, right, Karen? Like it just
Right?
happens. But the key is, yeah, I agree with you in the sense of it's about responding. It's about doing that also in a timely fashion and, making sure
Mhm.
that people feel like there's an actual human behind that response as well. really dressing that up, making sure that you're covering, the emotional part of it, to the person and acknowledging it.
Mhm.
And yeah, I mean, depending on the circumstance of the review, if it's something that can be handled internally, make sure you're fixing whatever that person left a review about.
Mhm.
That's definitely critical to make sure that, those things don't continue to happen. But yeah, I couldn't agree more with what you said.
Um, that's good. So let's talk about automation. We're kind of in there, right? Reviews, we got to automate this entire process and even, other tasks and stuff that we need to do as well. For Rob, like where are you seeing practices use automation to like free up their staff time and reduce their overhead, but also feeling high touch and not feeling AI, right?
Well, I think that question probably aligns a little bit more with the operational side with like, text message reminder for appointments and that
Mhm.
type of stuff. When it comes down to automation with, generating reviews and such, I don't love it. I think that what you really need to do is make sure that things are timed out appropriately. Automation is nice in a lot of ways. It can save your staff and save you a lot of time. But there are certain things that, in my opinion, on a marketing side, just need to be handled personally, one to one. And generating review requests is, quite honestly, one of those things that I believe should just be, hey, a quick conversation with the person, with the patient. Hey, did you have a good experience? Oh, you did. Fantastic. I'm going to send a text message over to you. If you don't mind leaving me some feedback, that would be really appreciated. So there's certain ways of saying that where it feels a lot more human, where it feels a lot more personal, and you end up getting better results. And I relate
Mhm.
that sometimes to like I have an appointment tomorrow morning with my dentist. It's at 8 o'clock in the morning, and I've been going to my dentist for years. And literally the day after the appointment, I know that on Thanksgiving morning, because my appointment tomorrow is at 8 o'clock in the morning, they must have it programmed to send me a text message 24 hours later, like on the nose, on the dot, like, hey, how did we do today? So I'm going to receive that text message on Thanksgiving morning at 8 o'clock, and I'm not going to respond to it, unfortunately, because it's Thanksgiving, but also because I just know it's coming from a system. It feels a little bit inauthentic. And, if you're really trying to, again, understand how a patient's experience actually was, let's ask them first. Let's make sure that they had a good
Mhm.
experience and then say to them, hey, that's fantastic. I'm happy that you had a great experience. It sounds like we're on the right track with things. Then say, hey, I'm going to get a text message over to you if you don't mind providing us some feedback. So, feedback is the word that I want everyone to use because feedback is open ended. When you say to someone, I'm going to send you a text message, leave us a 5-star Google review, it sounds very self serving. It sounds very salesy. But if you're actively just saying, hey, I'm going to send over a text message to you, leave us some feedback, it sounds so much softer and people are going to be more receptive to that and actually leave the review.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I would say for the automation conversation is remember that automation is good to augment and like we said, save some time, but it doesn't replace all of your processes. So for example, text message automated reminders, email automated reminders, great tools. But let's be honest, you're still going to get patients that don't confirm via text message, don't reply to that email. Like you may still need to pick up the phone and call them. Um, Also, I teach all of my practices to send out their pre-treatment instructions when appointments are scheduled. And especially if there's any prep time. Like Robbie, I have an appointment next week. I'm getting my Cyton Halo and Moxie and BBL treatment next week. And I scheduled this 6 months ago. And if they only sent me my pre-treatment instructions when I did my consultation where I scheduled it, and now it's 6 months later, how am I supposed to remember that today is exactly 1 week and I need to stop my retinol, right? So there needs to be like automation that's built in to support that process. Those are great ways to use automation. Pre-treatment instructions, reminders about like stopping products, reminders about other things. Automation is great, but again, it does not replace human touch. Use it to augment systems, but recognize where you still need that person. Remember, aesthetics is about relationships because let's be honest. I love y'all. Clinicians hate me here. I hate saying this, but a toxin is a toxin is a toxin. If you inject toxin in me, regardless of the brand, it's going to paralyze muscles and diminish my appearance of fine lines and wrinkles. And I can get that anywhere, even at my dentist. But what I can't get is you. I can't get your experience. I can't get the experience that I get when I walk into your office. I can't get you reminding me that I still need to pick up that vitamin C that you told me about last time I was in. So, this is a relationship driven industry. So, as much as we want to lean into certain things like automations and AI, we have to remember that we've marketed that personal experience that we're going to get. And we need to deliver that when our patients walk in the door and even before they come in the door. So it's all about balancing and understanding that patient experience. We've spent so much money, time, and energy marketing, right? That what we want to that patient that we want coming into our door. And when we deliver subpar services by trying to automate and AI everything, we're diminishing the value of all of that time, energy, effort, and money that we spent into marketing.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. And I think that kind of feeds into a subject that I find very interesting and, kind of intertwines itself with like the dentistry model, so to speak. We talk about rebookings, very often as well, Kara. And how do we really get patients who are coming in on a regularly scheduled cadence, to come in, like as an example, you go every 6 months to get your teeth cleaned. Well, what about your Botox? What about your fillers and everything else that is a
Mhm.
part of a, treatment package for you? So what do you recommend practice owners really do or employ within their mindset to really get them comfortable with the idea that when someone is checking out, saying, hey, your next scheduled appointment is going to be 3 months from now, 4 months from now, whatever that looks like. What suggestions would you give practice owners to be able to do that?
Yeah, it's a sequence of conversations that start at in the treatment room, right? So provider needs to be talking about treatment planning, comprehensive, what happens next. In order for you to get the best and optimal results, right? There might be a secondary appointment with a toxin. We know that it's going to happen. They have to come back. Just like our dentist and our teeth cleaning, we don't do it once a year. We don't do it once every 3 years. If you want to maintain the results, this is what you have to do. And setting that expectation starts with the treatment room when our providers are confident in communicating their treatment plans, expectations to patients, and then it carries, right? It's like a relay race, right? When then we pass the baton to our front desk. So my goal for my clients, all my consulting clients, 75% of my patients walk out with their next appointment.
Yep.
And when I first talk about it, they're like, "What? That's a lot."
Yeah.
Like they always call back or, they'll be fine. They're going to I have a high retention rate. They're going to come back. No, 75% of patients walking out of the door walk out with their next appointment scheduled. And it's reframing conversation. So our front desk team needs to be saying, Kara wants to see you back in 3 months for your next appointment. Let's go ahead and get you on the schedule. Never
Mhm.
say those dreaded words, do you want to? I want to do a lot of things and I have well intentions of doing them. Do I want to schedule my next appointment? I don't know. But if you tell me, let's go ahead and get your next appointment on the schedule, that's a different conversation. So, again, just like the dentist, you wouldn't dare walk out of the dentist without making your next appointment because you might not get it. Right. So,
Right.
it's the same conversation. You want the same results. You want to make sure that you get your appointment time with your provider. Let's get you on their schedule now. When patients say, oh, I don't know what I'm doing 6 months from now or 3 months from now, I always tell my girls jokingly, say the same thing. Like, I don't know what I'm doing 3 months from now, but let's go ahead and get you on the schedule. We know what you're going to be doing at 9 a.m. on February 14th now. February 15th, probably not 14th, maybe the 7th. But that being said, right, like let's put it on the schedule. And when you get home or back to your office this afternoon, if this time doesn't work out once you check your schedule, just give me a call back and we'll adjust it. And don't forget that we are going to make sure that you get an automated reminder. You're going to get an email message. Someone in the office is going to call you as it gets closer to your appointment time. If you need to adjust, let's do that. But I want to make sure that you walk out with your next appointment so that you're back on the schedule. We know you want to get the results that you're looking for. It's all about verbiage and how you speak to your patients and setting that expectation. That's why we love reoccurring membership models. That's why we love comprehensive treatment plans because we're getting patients invested in their own care so they know that they're going to get the result they want. And when they have that expectation, they're more willing to do so.
So I love that because all of this is, sales 101 type stuff, right? It's
Right?
understanding that we need to be confident, we need to be asking the right questions, we need to be telling them, hey, this is what's going to be happening, in 4 months from now. So let's get you on the calendar. And I think that's where the cognitive dissonance kind of happens with practice owners because they're not trained that way. if we're running a practice, we don't think of ourselves as necessarily salespeople, so to speak. So I think that there's definitely like some shaming, so to speak, that's kind of like
Mhm.
tied into that practice owners, get out of that mindset right now. If you feel like you're kind of in that rut of like, hey, I don't want to be the one who is overly, pushing what I do. That's not what this is about. This is about making sure that people have a treatment plan in place, getting them on the schedule, and making sure that you're taking care of them, in a lot of ways as well.
Mhm.
Because again, it gets back to the notion and the old sentiment of aesthetic medicine is still medicine, right? And we want to make sure
Mhm.
that things are being followed up on, that people are being followed up with as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Remember, you're not standing out front of your clinic with a sandwich board saying, come in for Botox. They actually looked you up, found your website, scheduled an appointment. They came in, right? So it's a service they want. And so if you're not educating them, not selling, if you're not educating them on how they get the best treatment, best outcomes, what happens next, you're actually doing them a disservice.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. And that all goes into the culture of your practice, and staff accountability, all of that. So, Rob, like, how can these practices tell that story of the culture that their practice has, and then so that then what they're showing online matches what's happening when they walk through the door, and going through, APPs and
Sure.
processes and whatnot that is helping them build this better and a more amazing practice.
So I think one of the best things that you can do is have a website that is highly personal. And the way that you do that is you want to have a lot of unique imagery on the website with people smiling. You want to have that moxie to you. You want to attract, just good things into your practice. And some of the websites that, I look at websites of aesthetic practices every single day. And oftentimes I see way too many aesthetic practices just have way too many stock photos on their websites. And when you have that, it dilutes your messaging. It makes things look and feel very generic. And again, aesthetic medicine is very competitive, right? Just within probably a 10-mile radius of me over the past year, there's been 3 medical spas who just opened up. So, things are very competitive. And one of the best things that you can really do to showcase who you are and really to attract the right person into your practice as well is to make sure that you are highly personalized because when that happens, you're going to attract that as well into your business. It's not going to feel like a sterile environment. And if you have a nice office space, showcase that on your website as well. Allow someone to actually feel what that environment is going to be through the website, because that is usually the first spot that someone lands. And then again, when you follow that up with having a really dynamic social media presence, where you can kind of tell your story that way as well and have that be highly personalized about who you are as a person, being authentic to yourself. Combine that with reviews, man, you're cooking with gas then, as we say.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Mhm.
Do you
Completely agree.
Yeah, awesome. Um, okay, so I guess that also we're talking a lot about lead flow and getting more leads in. Let's talk about moving from more customers to a higher value customer, higher LTV, higher loyalty customers. Kara, what does it look like for your practice when they start to move from we just need more new patients to we're focused on the lifetime value and loyalty of these patients?
Yeah. So when we start our businesses, we have a tendency to throw a ton of dollars at just getting people in the door by any means necessary, right? We have this vision in our head of what we want our practice to look like. But the reality is, especially if you just bought a ton of devices, you built an amazing website, you have this great place. Our early building our business really highly depends on us just getting patients in the practice. And the really grow or glow up from there in our practice is elevating our patient experience and elevating our patient perception. So I think when you want a patient that has a longer lifetime value, you have to create the value for them. And again, it's that look, it's that feel, it's how we speak to them. It's not discounting our services. It's being proud and standing behind what we offer, why we offer. That doesn't mean that you can't do some kind of promotional pricing, feature pricing, membership plans. Look, I'm not saying don't ever, ever, ever discount, but if you want a patient that values your services, that spends more money, that is loyal to you, you want them invested. And sometimes that investment is understanding this is it's going to cost money. The reality of it is that our consumers are far more savvy than they were 10 years ago. I guarantee you, even when they call the office and say how much is, they already know because they've either had that treatment somewhere else and they paid a price. They've done it in a lot of research online. You need to show them the value. So, and increasing your lifetime value patient is all about increasing their investment with your treatment plans, with your experience, your membership plans, getting them invested and continually coming back, and how you show up when they show up, right? So I think that so often we diminish that ability to create long-term patient relationships because we're just trying to get people in the door and out the door, and we go for the volume play versus the value play. And I think that that's a big mistake in practices. That's why membership plans are so important. One of the number one questions private equity companies, whether you're looking to sell or not, one of the number one questions they ask is, what does your reoccurring revenue look like? Right? What is that reoccurring revenue model? They want to see that you have patients coming back in because they're looking to buy something that has value. Your one-time patients mean nothing when they're looking at your EBITDA and, at the patient flow. So what are you doing to create consistent value? And again, that comes into how you're getting patients back in the door with your patient experience and how you're speaking to your patients through their experience, and also again, comprehensive treatment plans and getting them invested in, like Robbie said, this is still medicine, but we have a goal. Our goal is different than if we need, a surgery. And these treatments do take time, and sometimes combining multiple procedures. It should always be combining multiple procedures because not one thing does everything. Selling that value, that's the key to getting patients really sticky with the practice and coming back over time.
I love
Yeah,
that.
I think it's a function of, turning from a transactional practice where it's like, yeah, focused on so much volume into a sustainable practice where again you just continue to have people coming back to you with multiple treatment modalities. And if you start to think about turning your own business into that, it becomes more sustainable. To Kara's point, it becomes more attractive to private equity companies if that is the direction that you want to take your practice, or just, again, allow yourself as a business owner to continue to grow your patient volume and your patient base. Oftentimes business owners who are even, let's just say, 5 years in of owning a medical spa, sometimes private equity isn't always on their minds. It's like, hey, I'm just,
Mhm.
focused on growing out my business right now and growing new revenue streams and maybe reaching over $700,000. And that's okay, right? But you need to focus on, one step at a time, doing the right strategies, focusing on, um, just doing things the right way and through experience, as opposed to, again, I've seen so many business owners just kind of take this as a fly-by-night situation. Hey, I saw a
Mhm.
couple Instagram videos. I'm going to start up an aesthetic practice and start injecting people with Botox, right? Those are
Yeah.
oftentimes practices that unfortunately don't pan out as well, just simply because there's not as much of a force behind them in terms of what it takes to operationally and from a marketing angle really have the practice succeed.
Yeah. And just on the private equity thing, the one thing I always say is whether you're considering it or not, which I actually am not a huge proponent of, that's not what I'm saying, but you should be running your business as if that was the goal. Because what that teaches us is these systems, these processes, these strategic plans, and these very higher level thinking, that's what they're looking for. If I never want to sell my business a day in my life, but I'm just continuing to build it, you should be striving to run it in a way that builds that type of equity.
Yeah.
And that's what's going to really, really, again, make your business not only successful, but profitable.
Couldn't agree more. Yeah. Yeah. And it's a mindset shift, right? It's, taking your business from thinking about it as like a lifestyle type of business and, I'm just
Hmm.
kind of, treat this a little bit whimsically into, no, this is an actual business and I know my numbers and I know who's going to be coming in next week and I know who's going to be coming in 4 months from now as well. Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, let's talk about as we talk about lifetime values and growing the value of each patient, then it becomes a numbers game. Let's talk about metrics. What if you could have a dream dashboard with 5 metrics on it? What would that look like, and what would those metrics be?
Who is that for?
Either one of you, because I think there's different metrics, right, on the marketing side,
Yeah,
right? I know what they are, I from our
yeah,
success center and what we're showing. But then obviously, Kara, on your side, the ops side of, seeing renewal rates and kind of similar stuff to what we see even on the client side, right?
for sure. Robbie, do you want to start with the marketing metrics?
So yeah, just to kind of simplify this, Rachel, if you don't mind, I think that, one of the biggest things that, marketing companies can have a tendency of focusing on are what we like to call vanity metrics. So vanity metrics is about website traffic. Hey, here's how many hits that my website got, or here's my top
Hmm.
performing pages. Vanity metrics can be an indicator of success, but really the number one thing that you as a business owner need to focus on is your return on investment. Based upon what I'm spending right now on my marketing efforts, what is that turning into in terms of a dollar value for someone who is actually booking a treatment, not coming in for a consultation, not having a conversation with someone over the phone, what someone is booking for a treatment. So you have to really understand your numbers very well. And, part of the cool thing about our dashboard and what we've built here at My Advice is that we have a really clear indication in terms of really understanding, what that potential person is worth to you. So in other words, like what is this person worth if they actually booked an appointment? That's all available to all of our clients within what we call our Success Center dashboard. And it does give you, a pretty good indication of, your return on investment based upon what you're spending, what the patient actually came in for in terms of booking, what you're actually getting out of that. So to simplify that, Rachel, less focus on vanity metrics, more focus on just return on investment in general.
Yeah. And I completely agree. Now, I do have specific metrics that I have all of my practices track. So when I'm consulting with a client, we have a series of operational support calls. Once a month, it is strictly on metrics. So we do look at revenue-based metrics, but very deep dive in the practice. I love that you said the word vanity metrics because most practices, and when you go, we've all been to these industry conferences. When you listen to most people speak, when they're talking about the KPIs you should be looking at, they're almost always those vanity metrics. And they're very rarely the core metrics that really actually move the needle in the practice. So the ones that I always track, and we have a dashboard set up and we discuss them in detail, is our client retention rate, right? So obviously that's the clients coming back. But that's not just the rebooking rate. So I already told you that one of my metrics was 75% rebooking. When patients leave, we want 75%. That client retention rate is our overall clients that are coming back for future appointments. Retail sales per client is another big one, not just because we're trying to drive product numbers, but we know for a fact that the marriage of good treatments and what they do at home equals outcomes and longevity. Happy patients, when they want to see results, a lot of our treatments don't give us instantaneous results, but when you pair it with good skincare and at-home products, we're going to expedite that healing, enhance the result. Patients are going to see more of that buy-in. So, retail sales is not just a revenue generator, it's actually more of a function of treatment outcome. And so we always look at retail sales per client, average ticket size, treatment room utilization, and client lifetime value are the metrics that we are typically looking at. And then, of course, client satisfaction scores.
That's great.
How are you tracking, out of curiosity, Care, the client lifetime value? Is that something that you're tracking from like the initial appointment into like the latest appointment that the patient had? Like what are you looking at to
Yeah.
total it up?
So most PMS or practice management systems and EMRs actually have that built into the remote reporting nowadays. I can't think of one off the top of my head that does not give you some type of client long-term value, like their client actual value, but you should be tracking it from like your average client. So easy math for my practices that don't have it is what is the average tenure of your patient? If your practice has been open 5 years, or 50% of your patients from that, you typically can get those numbers from your PMS system. So what is the average tenure of your patient and what is your average ticket times that tenure, right? So, but again, most PMS systems will actually generate that report for you to show you what your client your average client lifetime value is.
Nice. Um, we do it's so interesting because we do so much like on the corporate marketing side. Obviously, I'm corporate marketing for My Advice. We do very similar stuff in terms of, by specialty and by whatnot, in terms of looking at our client lifetime value and what make clients make sense. Aesthetic practices are
Right?
great, so come talk to Robbie. They always stick.
I think that's a good point
Okay.
too, is yeah, like targeting, the clients as well that makes sense for you. You're not,
Mhm.
as an aesthetic business owner, you're not going to be a fit for every single person, right? And people pick up on your vibe because again, they're looking at your website, they're looking at your social media. It's really all about attracting the right tribe for you because if you're attracting the right tribe for you, those patients are going to stay with you longer and you're going to have a better
Mhm.
bottom line in your business. So again, don't want to be the buffet of aesthetic practices and just offer everything to everyone, right? Because
Absolutely.
nothing has ever been great at the buffet, right?
Yeah.
Unless you guys have been at better buffets than me. I've never had something great at a buffet. But if you
Right.
specialize in a specific type of person, so to speak, or treatment options and plans, you're going to attract more of those types of people into your practice.
Absolutely. Well, it's like creating that patient persona, right? Like we've built a culture and a brand image, and the patients we want in our doors match that persona. And that's what it's that with every business, right? Like not everybody's your patient. I say that in consulting. People are like absolutely shocked when I say, you know what? I think I'm not the consultant for you. I know someone though. I can
Right.
refer you to a friend. Even if she or he does something similar to me, by the look of your practice, by the personality, that person might make more sense for you. Just like you want to be that specific with your patients, because anytime we take on a patient that doesn't match our persona, that always ends up biting us in the rear end, right? Like there's a problem, or the
Yes.
expectations are off, or that patient wants, let's be honest, buffet pricing, right? They don't want luxury pricing.
Right.
And we want to be luxury because we value our services. You're literally, so you really do have to craft your marketing and your patient engagement to attract the patient persona that matches your brand.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah.
I love that. All right, let's shift our discussion a little bit. Kara, let's talk about some emerging trends in the aesthetic space. Consumer expectations, digital behavior, treatment bundling, etc. What should our practices be preparing for over the next 1 to 2 years?
So I'm going to leave the techie stuff and the marketing stuff to
Yep.
Robbie because I feel like he probably has lots of that.
I'm asking
I'm
him
going to
next,
talk
so you're
about,
good.
yeah, I'm going to talk about consumer behavior as well as treatments. So, consumer behavior, again, guys, remember, patients are so more savvy today than they were before. So, with the introduction of AI and like these are no longer taboo treatments. They can Google anything. Hailey Bieber is talking all about her favorite treatment, right? All of these things. And so consumer behavior does number it's great because it drives attention, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the consumer behavior drives the right treatment plan for everyone. So I think that we're getting into an era where patients are walking in the door and wanting to dictate their treatment plan. And so we as medical providers have to remember this is a medical treatment and own that education, credential yourself, and really, really be confident in the recommendations that we're giving to our patients because it's people are walking in the door creating their own treatment plans. And I think that we're going to see that more and more and more because all of these controversies and discussions around certain types of treatments that are trends, that are on label, off label, all this kind of stuff is now happening all over social media and out in the industry, and our consumers are getting this information. I think it's going to only excel as we continue to see new, more innovative treatments coming out, kind of by way of the second trend, which is the integration of regenerative and wellness, and really, really taking over aesthetics. Let's be honest, regenerative aesthetics is not new. I worked in my first med spa in the 90s that were doing a lot of the treatments that we're doing today that they're like, oh my gosh, this is brand new. No, this just has new packaging or it has new marketing or it has a new bundle or we've just brought it back to the forefront. We've been doing this for years. I think that because of that, we're seeing a lot of regenerative, right? Wellness, all of these things with the uptick in GLP-1s are everywhere. 2 years ago, it was like somebody was offering them or we can get them online. Now that every single practice is offering them. So I think that that's also driving the need for more innovative treatments and comprehensive treatment plans like we've been talking about. But again, this move to wellness and integrating all things into our aesthetic treatment plans is important because consumers want it. They're educated, they're savvy. Marketing it appropriately, being confident to be speaking about it because let's be honest, it's no longer just Botox fillers and lasers in our practices. It's now peptides and hormones and weight loss and sexual wellness and all of these things that used to be in separate practices.
Right. Yeah, I think patients in general just they want to find solutions that allow them to feel better, not only out on the outside but also on the inside. And they're looking for, the combination of both and understanding that, the person who is coming in for aesthetic treatment options might be the same person who is going through menopause, right? As an
Mhm.
example, and doesn't really know what to do about it. So let's talk about hormones. So this is really where things are headed. You need to be educated on these things and, understand that a lot of your patients might be already looking for some of these things that you could truthfully be offering at some point in your practice too. So, Rachel, what was the tech part of that question? If you don't mind repeating that.
Yeah, yeah. So just looking at emerging trends over the next 1 to 2 years on the marketing side, right? Like, obviously leveraging automation, AI-driven marketing, patient engagement. Like, what are the trends that you're seeing practices start to really like catch on to now and that you think is really going to grow for the next 1 to 2 years?
Well, I think any practice owner here needs to know what to do to show up stronger within not only traditional Google searches, but also AI search as well. And I'll be the first one to say that Google is still dominating search. When we are in need of something, we still go to Google. So that is happening. So the question is really understanding, what has also changed within Google. So Google is no longer providing most of the time with like a laundry list of different options, like, hey, here's all of your organic searches or different options within organic search. Google is now migrating to it's all powered by Gemini. It's called their AI, their own AI is called Gemini. And what's happening is that Google is providing you an AI overviews now. So in other words, we're getting so used to going to Google and typing in a question like, who is the best medical spa or aesthetic practice near me? And what we're seeing now is not necessarily that laundry list of different options for aesthetic practices locally. We can still find that. But what Google is doing now within their AI overviews is what it's called, is providing us more singular information. Like, here is the best medical spa in your area, in your town. So what we're noticing is that website traffic is actually decreasing because of that, because individuals are now getting their answers directly through AI. So the then question is, well, how do I make sure that my website is being adopted into Google's AI overviews? Like, what do I need to do to be the one website that Google really picks? You need to be an authority. And the way that you do that is you need to have great content on your website. Your content needs to answer people's questions. You obviously need to have a strong Google review process. We already covered that. You need to make sure that you have accurate directory information all across the internet. That's a big concept that I coach a lot of practices on as well. You basically need to make sure that you have accurate NAP information. NAP is an acronym for name, address, and phone number all across the internet. So there's a lot of things that these platforms are, again, looking for. And again, I think that the key to all of this is understanding the secret sauce does exist, and it exists with partnering with the right individuals and the right companies who know, what these things are and how they're transitioning, because it's a moving target, you guys. Google is changing on a regular daily basis at this point. So things are changing very rapidly and you need to stay on top of them.
Yeah. I actually noticed that today. I was looking for dinner reservations for Friday night for my family. And it like I was like, I know there's a lot more restaurants downtown than just these like few, but it really only kept giving me the same five or six. And I live in, a mid-sized metropolitan city. But like it was great. I was like, oh, this is really interesting to see. It's really just feeding into the ones that are probably getting the most traffic and whatever it's doing on the back end. So it was really interesting.
The reason why
Um,
Google's doing that is because it's trying to really sharpen, the experience that someone has going to their platform.
yeah.
In other words, like the experience of just like getting fed those three restaurants versus you going through like 10 different listings and trying to discern, which is the best one as an example. It's a
Yeah.
lot easier of a user experience if you're just getting told, Rachel, this is the best steakhouse that you should be going to.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
All right, time is flying. So, we don't have any questions yet, so feel free to put them in the chat, but would love to get a few just like final takeaways from each of you. I guess, from Rob, I will ask you, just a prompt question, but you can say anything. Um, how are you, at my advice, we are focused on profitable growth for all of our practices. What was one change you would recommend to each one of the practices on here now to help them grow more profitably in 2026?
You need to follow the rules that these search engines are really, putting out there and understanding, what they're looking for if you're focused on new client acquisition. But as I said at the very beginning of this webinar tonight, it's just not about new patient acquisition. It's also about retaining the existing patients that you also already have. It's kind of like the old 80/20 rule, right? 80% of your revenue comes from, 20% of your client base. So those people within your practice that you continue to make happy and give results to, foster those relationships. As Kara said earlier within this webinar as well, this is a relationship-oriented business. You know, it's very akin to, my mom has cut hair for the past 35, 40 years. And oftentimes she says, like, yeah, I'm half hairstylist, but I'm also half therapist because someone sits in the chair and they splurge, right? It's kind of the
Mhm.
same thing in aesthetics as well. You hear people's stories, you get to know them a lot more, you develop a relationship with them. So, in a very tech-driven world like we're in right now, where AI is everywhere, it's kind of a little bit overwhelming. Yes, it's important, but don't lose the human touch, guys. That's the most important thing. That is your differentiator at this point, is the human touch. And don't go so overboard with AI stuff and automation. Yes, some of it's great, and yes, some of it can help you, but the human touch at this point is what's going to differentiate you.
100%.
And Kara, what is one change on the ops side that you would recommend everybody makes to grow?
Have everything locked in from a like policy procedure, like work plan and flow. Like we have a tendency to, because things move so fast, we kind of do things on the fly. But if you dial in your workflow and your processes and procedures, and you make sure that your operations is so tight, it's supporting your marketing, it's supporting your clinical, you have a process, an outline, an SOP, a checklist for everything. The time that it takes to invest in building the structure is what you're going to build on, right? You can't build a mansion on sand, right? You need to have that strong foundation. And you can only build so high if your foundation is not that strong. So take the time to build the foundation. And it's never too late, because if you started and you started building, like you can go back and put that foundation. Operational efficiency and organization structure, that form and function is what allows us to operate as businesses to be profitable.
I love that. Um, all right, we've asked a lot of questions tonight. I feel like we've covered a lot. So I'm going to quickly share my screen if everyone's okay with that, just to get this up here. Anything else you guys want to touch on as we wrap up?
No, it was great. And Kara, I appreciate your pearls of wisdom as well. This has been fantastic. And I hope that everyone here has a lovely Thanksgiving. I'm not sure what your plans are, but if you are traveling, please travel safe. Enjoy yourself, enjoy your families, whatever you guys have going on. And what Rachel is sharing right now are some QR codes into my calendar as well as Kara's. So if you are inclined to, go through a little bit more of an individual strategy session, kind of going through, on my end, it would be your digital strategy. On Kara's end, it would be a whole lot more operational stuff. Please feel free to, book out some appointments with us here. Be happy to spend some time with you and develop a plan and a strategy that's going to make the most sense.
Yep. And I'll be sending out an email tomorrow with the recording and then the actual links, not just QR codes, as well as Rob and Kara's contact information so that you have everything and you can pass it on as well to anyone that didn't make it tonight or that you think would benefit from this discussion. So, Rob, Kara, thank you guys so much. This is a wonderful conversation. And as Rob said, wishing everybody on here a very happy Thanksgiving and an easy Wednesday and ease into it. And anyone hosting, Good luck. And we will talk to y'all soon. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.